I was doing some research for an expose of KC Research, the clowns. These guys are clown factory, just like all these guys. All these guys you hear about, I'm telling you, they're all clowns. Now, you can be skeptical and say, well, you're just trying to make everyone sound bad, to make yourself sound good. Folks, I'm being honest. My honest opinion, I'm telling you that everybody out there is an idiot, scumbag, profiteer, crook, liar, and or loser. These people providing financial information, financial publishers, and so forth. This is after investigating these individuals, these websites, these companies for well over a decade. I was doing this research for well over a decade, because, of course, everyone is always looking for alternative viewpoints. Now, I happen to have worked on Wall Street and I had access to a lot of research. While I do not particularly value Wall Street research per se, I can tell you this. There's no comparison between Wall Street research and what you're getting from these professional copywriting houses like KC Research. I mean, it's a joke. In fact, I learned a lot about investments, the investment process, about risk, about analysis from Wall Street research. Now, there's a lot of it that's garbage. You have to be able to decipher what's good and what's not. But I did learn a lot from Wall Street research. I've never learned anything from these copyright companies, these professional publishers. They're just a bunch of morons. So here we have KC Research, their senior precious metals analyst. And I wanted to show you his little bio because it's representative of the rest of the staff at KC Research and also the staff at all these other publishing firms. Okay? Martin Wise, you name it. And the point I'm trying to make is that you will almost never see anyone who has come from the financial industry. And when they have, maybe they were involved in some mutual fund, and they beef up they exaggerate their role or so forth. But you will almost never see anyone who's actually managed assets professionally on Wall Street. When I mean managing assets, I'm talking about individual accounts, separate accounts. And I think it's even more important to have managed assets than to have managed a fund. And the reason why is because when you manage a fund, you are managing a portfolio based upon set criterion, and you're not considering suitability of numerous individuals. You're just considering the guidelines that you have to go by in the fund, or maybe you've created for the fund if you're the fund founder. But when you're managing client assets, you get a good feeling for suitability and risk. That's a very important thing to learn. And if I had not managed client assets, and I had separate accounts, I was probably managing a couple of hundred or more separate accounts. And that's like managing, 200 mutual funds at the same time. If I had not gained that experience, I certainly wouldn't know as much as I do know today. I value that experience greatly. So anyway, let's take a look at Mr. Clark's bio. First thing that they want to tell you is that he's the son of an award-winning gold panner. Which I guess, that qualifies him to be a senior precious metals analyst while working as a psychological counselor. So basically, what he's telling you is that his experiences as probably some type of a high school counselor, guidance counselor. And so he invested in the IPO of Snapple, made a bundle, and discovered how very profitable speculating can be. I mean, this is the guy KC Research has as their senior precious metals analyst. His dad was a gold panner, and he's a guidance counselor. Wow. Where's his precious metals investing experience? Does he have anything specific to tell you about that? No, he doesn't. This is such a bullshit bio. This guy has done nothing. And, I don't want to be hard on him personally, but I just want to let people know they're listening to the bullshit from these clowns who are not qualified. People, you're better off on your own than listening to these chumps. I mean, this should be obvious to you. Okay, so I ran across this article. Let me show you. Mr. Clark wrote this marketing piece here, this gold pumping piece, March 27th, yesterday. He's telling you to ignore what the banks are saying on gold. I don't pay attention what the banks say on gold, although it's probably a pretty good indicator if you can read the intent of the banks, because once again, the banks, central banks, Wall Street banks, they control gold prices. Now, just because the banks say gold is going down doesn't mean it's going to go down. They may be trying to dupe the unsophisticated gold bugs. Nevertheless, his whole premise is basically, hey, the banks have come out and they're bearish on gold, and with good reason. Just look at the chart. I did a gold analysis and forecasting video a couple of days ago. I think that pretty much tells the picture. So the whole premise, once again, is that the banks are bearish on gold, but you want to ignore them, is what he's saying. So then he's talking about how the analysts have been consistently wrong. What he doesn't understand is that the so-called analysts for precious metals on Wall Street are much different than the analysts for equities. Because the analysts for equities, they're going by earnings, they're going by fundamentals, they're going by a lot of financials that they're able to use for valuation metrics. Gold analysts, you don't have that. All you really have is to look at inventories, supply, demand, and technical analysis, which is very important. The point I'm trying to make is that more so even than the Wall Street equities analysts, the Wall Street precious metals analysts, they influence the price of gold much more. Now, I'm not saying, once again, that the Wall Street precious metals analysts are going to necessarily be an accurate indicator where gold is going, because a lot of times, they'll go against what they say. Anyway, point is that he's saying that you want to ignore the Wall Street gold analysts because they've been consistently wrong. Okay? All right, so we go through here, this article. So what he wants to do next is that he wants to go back into the 70s and point out how people were saying the same thing, yet gold soared. So what he does is that he shows you a chart of gold, and then he numbers it. Below that, he gives you the what was said. So I'm going to go ahead and show you now. Number 1, number 2, 3, 4. So you can see, number 1, New York Times is saying the party seems to be over. Number 2 is New York Times again. Number 3, New York Times. Number 4, Time Magazine. First of all, this is cherry picking. He cherry picked this. In other words, the media is always giving the audience all sides of the gamut. It's telling you the bull market is over, the bull market has legs, so forth, over the same time period. This is a trick the media uses. The key thing is to determine what the media really emphasizes, which story they're emphasizing, which sentiment they're emphasizing. And it's impossible to know that from Mr. Clark posting his cherry-picked little statements. He's looking for negative things to be said about gold, right? Of course, this all relates to interpretation of media, which I've covered extensively. So first of all, once again, it's cherry-picked. Second of all, we do not know to what extent this sentiment was weighed by the media. We don't know to what extent they favored this sentiment. So we'll just continue here. Number 5 is Time Magazine, 6 New York Times, 7 New York Times, New York Times 8, New York Times. Notice that almost every single source is from New York Times. That in itself, I mean, that's not a good data sample, is it? Would you say? I don't see anything here from the Wall Street Journal or Barron's or anything else, right? It's all New York Times. But that's not even the critical point here. The critical point is that Mr. Clark is apparently not that clever, not that bright, because his premise was that Wall Street is lowering price targets on gold. Wall Street is becoming bearish on gold. And then he says, well, the analysts have been consistently wrong. But then he comes down here and he quotes what the New York Times is saying. He doesn't mention anything about what Wall Street was saying. 99% of you would not have caught this point on your own. And it's not because you're stupid. Plenty of you are very intelligent. It's because of the mentality. You have to have the right mindset. You have to have the charlatan radar on, and you're not going to detect these things. You're just going to read this stuff. And part of the charlatan radar, and you should always have it on, is you have to think critically. You have to think with the devil's advocate point of view. Just think clearly. That's all you have to do. And that's asking a lot these days because, of course, of the media has dumbed down everyone, is constantly distracting everyone. I mean, just from your smartphone alone, you're texting and all this stuff. I don't do any of that garbage. I don't have a TV. I keep my mind clear. So there are some of you out there who probably would have caught this, but I can guarantee you 99% of you would not have caught this. And you see this type of manipulation all the time. If you're not detecting it, then you don't have your eyes open. The best thing is just to stay away from these clowns, not just Casey Research, all these guys. You're better off on your own. I'm telling you. This is a prime example of the trash that all these financial publishers put out.